got a spice fever, and the only thing you can handle it.
And the only prescription is spice.
Spice fever.
Who controls the spice controls the world.
All I'm saying is they should have brought Kyle MacLachlan back as the Emperor, as the original nod to
someone.
Dune.
That would have been pretty cool, actually.
Because
that would have been pretty cool, or at least bring Sting.
Yeah.
All right, are we ready, gentlemen?
Ready.
Ready like Freddy.
Five Nights at Freddy.
Welcome to a very
silence.
Welcome to someone's phone's going off.
Oops, sorry, that was my fault.
I just can't win.
I have two phones, and they're both rings, and they both went off at the same time. I'm sorry.
Welcome to a very special season 5 episode of 3.5 Gentlemen, the podcast, where 3 of the 4 hosts provide a refined and intellectual analysis of movies from our private collections, while one of us tries desperately to keep up. We'll let you decide which host is which. But for now, my name is Sean, and with me, as always, trudging through the desert, are my co-hosts, Jeremiah.
May my knife chip and shatter.
Eddie.
That's what they're saying. Okay. A great man doesn't seek to lead. He's called to do it.
That's my goddamn...
And Brandon.
Shit.
It's always your line, Brandon.
No, I know, but Eddie
surprised.
stole my fucking line. Okay. This is only the beginning. The last line of the freaking movie. There we go.
You could have done, Brandon, you could have done like the whole hardcore thing, like, my knife.
I could have done
like
that.
all like awesome Butler.
We're taking a little break from the normal season scheduled to bring you a special episode to celebrate the release of Dune 2 in theaters.
As with every review, we give our goals to answer one simple question. How many drinks does it take to get through the film that we've just watched? Now, at the end of the podcast, we'll rate the movie based on a scale of 0 to 5. 0 being a perfect film that you can watch stone cold sober, and 5 being sort of the film that makes you feel like you're being swallowed whole by a gigantic sandworm.
Kind of like a sarlacc?
Very similar to a sarlacc.
I felt like Lucas was like, Emperor.
That's a good idea.
People that move people with their voice. Okay, the Force.
Trimmers.
Okay.
Trimmers, guys. You missed it.
Oh, shit.
Oh, go ahead, Brandon.
As Eddie mentioned just a second ago, tonight we're tackling the so far 2-part series of Dune, directed by Denis Villeneuve and featuring an absolute star-studded cast that includes Timothée Chalamet, Oscar Isaac, Rebecca Ferguson, Zendaya, and Jason Momoa, to name a very select few. Dune follows Paul Atreides, a member of a galactic...
Timothée.
What? Timothée?
Not Timothy.
No, I wrote it as Timothy.
Timothée.
There's an H in there.
Are you serious? Wait, Sean, are you serious?
Timothée.
I've been saying his name wrong this whole time.
His name is Timothée Chalamet.
Okay. Oh, can I try that?
I'm telling you right now.
I'm going to try that again.
Is Timothée?
Oh, here we go. Ready? Star-studded class that includes, really is just led by Timothée Chalamet, and it follows Paul Atreides, played by Timothée Chalamet, a member of a galactic noble family that has been tasked with overseeing a planet that holds the universe's most precious commodity, spice. But forces beyond Paul's understanding are trying to take control of the planet and eliminate any obstacles in their way. Dune 1 has earned an IMDb rating of 8.0 out of 10 and has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 83% with the critics and an audience score of 90%.
I guess I didn't know that you were a Jason Momoa fan. You know, you totally left out.
Oh, I fucking hate Jason
Javier
Momoa,
Bardem.
Except in
And?
Dune. My God, he was
And
magical.
Josh Brolin?
He was like
Javier Bardem.
he was the Draco.
Javier Bardem
the
is
Drago.
Skylar.
He was the Drago that I wanted from Game of Thrones.
He was pretty awesome in that one, dude. In Dune 1. I have to agree with you, man.
Who?
Jason Momoa.
At least he didn't go, my man.
As with every movie that we review, we try to pair our selection with a cocktail that we hope will enhance the viewing experience. Ed, take us through the cocktail that we will be enjoying this evening.
Yes, in honor of the Spice Planet itself, we'll be enjoying the Arrakis Cocktail, brought to us by the adultbar.com. For this cocktail, you'll need to fill a shaker with ice and then add a mandarin liqueur, 30 milliliter of vodka orange, 30 milliliter of mandarin juice, 10 milliliter of coconut cream, 10 milliliter of grenadine. Shake the ingredients up and strain it into a glass. Enjoy it while you dodge sandworms.
Do it.
All right, let's start.
Do it.
Anyway, okay. So let's start with Dune 1 and Dune Part 1. And this is a movie that came out several years ago, obviously, now. And let's talk about where we saw it. I didn't see this one in theaters. I waited for it to come out on HBO Max, and I watched it on Max. And I've seen it a couple of times. It was the first time I watched it. I didn't know what to expect. First of all, I did not know there was a part 2. And I know right at the beginning it says part 1. I know I just must have missed it or something. But I remember getting done with the movie, going, God, what stories are left to be told? Like this, come on. Anyway, let's talk about get us some first reactions a little bit. Brandon.
Yeah, so I've been sitting on the Blu-ray edition for literally years because Jeremiah has kept dangling this thing of, hey, we're going to do Dune 1. We're going to do Dune 1. So I didn't get a chance to go see it in theaters because I have kids. And so I'm like, you know what? Not that I don't want to watch it.
That was last season, by the way, listeners.
And it's not that I don't want to watch the movie and then rewatch it, but I'm like 2.5 hours when I have 2 little kids. I mean, that's a precious commodity. So I was waiting for Jeremiah to be like, we're doing Dune 1. And he didn't. So I was just literally sitting on this Blu-ray. And then finally we said, let's do Dune 1 and let's do Dune 2 as a special 2-part episode in the season. And so I finally got a chance to throw my Blu-ray in. I could have watched it on Max, but I said, fuck it. I've been waiting for this Blu-ray. So I watched it on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Physical media.
Exactly, man. So yeah, I'm really recent. I've only seen it once. And I'm really recent. And I saw it really 2 days before Dune 2 came out. So it's been really fresh in my mind, and I'm excited to talk about it. A lot of Dune
in 36 hours.
A lot of sand.
Holy shit.
A lot of sand, dude.
Let me just tell you, if you like butt up these 2 movies together, it's about 20 minutes shorter than Lawrence of Arabia, I think. So I mean, still we're coming out ahead.
I think the equal amount of sand, though. Same amount of sand.
But maybe just a little bit more ice to this one.
Much more, though.
Eddie, what do you think, man?
Actually, a lot like Brandon. So my time available is very limited. So when I saw the amount of time of this movie, Dune 1, I was like, okay, I'm not going to watch it till we officially going to have it on the watch list. Because there was supposed to be season 3, I think, and season 4, and so I was, I've been waiting to watch it because I know I wanted to give an honest opinion, but I watched it only one time, and so I was looking forward to it. With all the hype around season part 2 coming out, I was like, okay, intrigued because they're going to make this possibly into like a 3-part series, so. It has to be doing something right. So I was trying to.
Oh, they're gonna Terminator this shit. There's gonna be literally Dune Part 12. We know that's coming.
Jeremiah coming into it.
Yeah, me and Hannah saw this on HBO Max. Like it came out the first day, and Hannah hates science fiction. By the way, just to let you guys know, like she hates it with the passion of 1,000 suns, and that became one of her favorite fucking movies. And then we actually went to go see it in the movie theaters next week. When it came out, and that was like our Halloween experience, but we saw the movie theaters when like it was like nobody there because of like the pandemic, and it was one of the greatest things I've ever seen. I was like Javier Bardem. I was like hyping you, like, oh my god, dude, you got to see this. Oh my god, you got to believe in this and shit this whole time. And I just absolutely fell in love with this movie. I thought that was one of the best movies I've seen before Oppenheimer came out. And so I'm really happy to go and talk about this. It's a very, very hardcore science fiction movie, man.
Yeah.
It's very deep.
Hell yeah!
Is Timothée
Chalamet?
Timothée Chalamet. So you guys a big fan of him? Like I don't know anything prior to this movie.
I think he's a movie star.
For me, he's going to be one of the most prolific actors since Leonardo DiCaprio. He has something about him.
I see him going Johnny Depp way.
I'm not quite sure what it is.
You see him go?
Okay, same thing.
It definitely grew on you. Yeah.
He's got a range.
This feel that's I started liking him.
Yeah.
Yes.
I did not want to like him, and as you watch him, it's almost impossible not to like him. And I've seen him now in 5 different movies or 4 different movies and different roles, unlikable roles, and he's still he's encapsulated. Every time you watch him, he's intriguing. The way he moves on screen, the way he talks, just is his mannerism. It's very different. He's a very different actor. He actually reminds me of a young Will Smith, where you got to a point where Will Smith, kind of every time he came on screen or he smiled or he laughed, you wanted to watch more of his career.
He has that Johnny Depp Leo vibes. Yeah, I agree.
No, I mean, it was really nice and relieving, honestly, to hear that I'm not the only one that went into seeing this movie. Now, I'd seen him in Little Women and I'd seen him in Lady Bird, and I didn't want to like him because everybody talks about Timothée Chalamet. And I haven't seen Wonka. But there's just something about like him that I just didn't want to like. And yet I agree that he is somebody that you just find yourself rooting for. And I think that it's really good because in a movie, and this is not to cut this movie down, but in a movie that does stretch 2.5 hours, where so much shit is happening, like, to the point where it's almost so confusing. We've got, new planet here, new planet there, new people here, no new race there. You need somebody to ground you. And I think that he does a fantastic job of grounding us. But I think that we need to compliment Rebecca Ferguson, who actually had a way bigger role than I was expecting her to have.
One of my favorite actors.
She's fantastic.
Yeah.
Since I saw her first in Greatest Showman, I have loved watching her and just following her. And I think she's a fantastic actress. I think she's beautiful. I think her presence on screen in this movie, though, commands. Like, she did so much more than I was expecting.
Now, let me ask you something, guys. This movie is a very, very deep. It goes really deep, its background, different type of houses, planets, the whole purpose of what's happening. How did you guys feel when you were watching this for the first time? Even you, Sean, because you said it took you a few times to really get the grasp of like, okay, this is the house I'm looking at. This is the reason what's going on here.
Yeah, truth be told, I did not understand the first movie until I watched the original. So I just watched the original. There's an original with Sting,
David Lynch directed,
and with David Lynch directed it, but the studio destroyed it from David Lynch, and it was very cutting edge, and it pushed the limits a lot of what science fiction movies were supposed to be in the 80s. But it was terrible. It's almost unwatchable.
Yeah.
And
David Lynch didn't talk about it.
84.
And one more thing, to your point, Jeremiah, I've tried to read this book. I've tried to read this book probably 10 times. And I can't get past the names, the Arrakis, the fact that Arrakis, the planet Arrakis, also is called Dune, and it has spice, which extends life and is responsible for the transportation of these massive vehicles across space and time. I mean, it's basically resources. Yeah. Basically, it's all the resources in the galaxy are in one shitty planet called Arrakis. But it took
Tatooine.
me a really long time, and then I watched the original. And what the original does beautifully, and what I think that this movie would not have been served by, and Denis made a very good choice not to do this, is in the first part of the original movie, you get explained
it breaks it down.
What planet House Atreides is from, what planet the Harkonnens are from, why they're on Arrakis, and that the Emperor has basically supplanted the Harkonnens with the House Atreides with the express purpose of letting Harkonnen back in to destroy House Atreides because he fears that Leto Atreides is going to challenge him as Emperor and take over the known universe. Essentially, that's the story.
Oscar Isaac?
Yeah, Oscar Isaac.
Right.
And Oscar Isaac does explain that during the movie when he's talking that one-on-one with his son, Paul. He knows that we're getting set up. And he actually explains, like we're going to get set up here because the Emperor fears our family, fears that we can overthrow.
Technically, they can't, because they're way stronger and they're more developed.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
The people believe him to do. That's the thing too. That they gravitate towards him as a leader.
Yeah.
And so the Emperor fears that, and that's why he kind of sets him up like that, especially with the Bene Gesserit.
Additionally, you have a second subplot with the Bene Gesserit priestesses, where they're basically controlling, what the gender of children are among the families, and the Bene Gesserit that end up with Leto Atreides defied the council of the Bene Gesserits and gave him a son in Paul, creating the prophecy that he was going to do what he's going to do. Yeah. So basically, you've got these two subplots running side by side, and this movie took
very confusing. It was very confusing.
and I don't mean to be criticize the movie that this early on, but in part 1, we had 2.5 hours. There was ample time to explain a lot of this, and they did not do it at all.
Preach it.
Or they did it very little. Yeah. And I feel like just a little bit less sand and a little bit more exposition, and part 1 would have been good, because when you start rolling into part 2 and you don't have time but to just enjoy the story playing out, which I think part 2 is much stronger, the first part fails in just exposition. Give me something to hold on to. It just didn't give it to me fast enough.
Very true.
But now that you watch it over again, you understand it now. Like, you
Absolutely.
can break it down and everything.
Yes.
So that's kind of like where I feel like we are going through the point of view as Paul, as he's learning side by side, like learning, like, okay, we were set up by the Emperor. Okay, this is what's going to be happening here. Okay, he finds out that he actually overhears Lady Jessica of what, the Reverend Mother was telling him, like, okay, so you are actually kind of like, propagating this whole lie about this whole Messiah. You're planning on this, and making me be a part of it. And it's like almost like he's disgusted by the whole situation.
Yeah.
So you kind of see his point of view, like he's going through this whole like trial of errors of what you see in the story.
Yeah. So listen, I'm going to be really, really honest and tell you that to me, this is a movie that fails in the big picture, because to me, it's style over substance. I think that when I watched this movie, I was completely overwhelmed with the story. There is so much going on, and I get what you're saying, that we are kind of like Paul, but we're not like Paul. Okay, because Paul has been living in this world for 25 years. Paul understands the whole purpose of spice. I know they flashed it up there briefly, and they mentioned it briefly, but what the fuck is spice, right? In the big picture, we need to know more of the specifics, and we shouldn't have to go back to the source material. And yet, what I will say is that this is one of the most beautiful movies that I've ever seen. But the problem is the beauty of the film, the beauty of the cinematography, and the quality of some of the acting, though I got to be honest, there's some acting that I thought was borderline atrocious.
I mean, you guys are very close with how I feel about it, but I do want to say I almost feel like I also know I have to take a step back, because I feel like what we're experiencing with part 1, I feel like is what the people who experienced Star Wars 1, what they felt like when that first movie came out. They had no idea what to expect with different planets, with Jedis, and it's exactly like that. Because they had no part 2, they had no part 3, they didn't have that. So when we see it now, because we grew with Star Wars with 1, 2, and 3. But if you have to think 1978 and Star Wars Part 1 comes out, you have no idea what the fuck they're talking about.
When Obi-Wan is in the Millennium Falcon,
you had
he explains to Han Solo, right? He explains to Han, he explains to Luke what the Force is.
You're seeing the bigger picture. Star Wars is good because of 2 and 3. I don't think it could be by itself. It's not a by itself movie. You have to have that it's a collection. I feel like Dune will be complete after part 3 comes out, and it's one of those movies that it's going to age well in time. I can see. I personally feel like it. It's one of those movies you have to watch 2 times to 3 times, and you start experiencing, hey, I know more about the story now because I know what they're trying to get. By itself I was lost, but now after seeing Dune 2 and going back to Dune 1, it's like, oh, this all made sense a little bit more. It's like them talking about the Clone Wars. Obi-Wan's like, what the fuck's the Clone Wars in part 1? Technically part 4. And now it's like, oh, there's all these little secrets in there. And I feel like that's going to be Dune once everything's all wrapped and said and done, personally. But keep going, Sean.
So I agree in part and disagree in part. So when Star Wars released in 1977, the reason that it was so successful was because the plot was very simple. Farm boy gets co-opted to defeat Empire and blow up space station. He succeeds.
You don't see the Empire. The Emperor,
no,
part 1.
Not the Emperor,
not
the Empire.
But the Empire. The Empire.
Okay.
But so it's a very simple plot. You don't know what you're missing. We've been introduced to this grand Star Wars world and this universe that's vastly beyond the first movie. I feel like Dune has a very undigestible plot. It's very hard without 2 and perhaps 3 to really understand the whole arc of what the hell's going on. And if we're only getting another 2.5 hour movie, I'm not quite sure that he can wrap this entire story up at the pace he goes with me being very satisfied with the ending. I don't know. I hope he can. I really do. I hope he can. And Jeremiah has something on that. But I guess I agree with Brandon in part, but disagree. I think that this is old-fashioned storytelling. This is taking your time and developing worlds and creating a tone that is unlike anything I've ever seen on screen. Yeah. This is science fiction at its very, very, very best. If you don't like it, you don't like it. That's perfectly fine. I totally understand and agree. But this is science fiction at its best. Yeah. The sets are immaculate. When Paul's in his bedroom on Arrakis and there's that mural of the sandworm and he's following the little rabbit, El Said or whatever it is on the learning about all the things, learning about the way that they move through the Ferryman move through the desert. All of this stuff is building a world where when he finally gets to the Ferryman, you kind of aren't surprised about anything. You're not surprised that he's fitting in so wonderfully because he's done his research. You know that he has an interest in what's going on in Arrakis. He's not coming at it like this schoolboy. He engages with the material. He wants to know about Arrakis. And I think that while the first movie is slow, drawn out, and doesn't quite hit all the marks it should with developing story, I think that it really sets you up between the part one and part two, in that Paul is a very innocent, kind of unassuming character that slowly is realizing that he is Lawrence of Arabia. He is to join all the tribes of Ferryman together and defeat and liberate them.
He's the chosen one,
right? And I think that story. I think that Denis is taking his time and really crafting a beautiful world where this is going to receive zero sequels, offshoots, plot hole, rogue ones. It's not going to require any of that because you're getting full story from the beginning.
The first part of Dune is actually showing Paul's emotional arc. You know, he's not a 25-year-old guy. He's a kid. He's a child. And he's a child becoming a man, as we see during this whole film, the part one. You know, that's why he's learning. I think they broke it down a lot regarding to what we're trying to follow here. Spice, they said in the movie, man, it's the most important resource in the universe. Okay. I mean, it's the most important thing for life. I can say this is
the worst thing in the world, but if I don't explain it, then I don't explain it.
Let me finish.
I mean, they did explain it, Brandon, in that it extended life, right. and it was the fuel for the ships. So it was just the explanation was, in my opinion, they did explain it. It was just not sufficient.
No. Jeremiah, continue. Yes, continue, Jeremiah.
No, I mean, it breaks it down that the emperor, you know, is running the whole show and he has all these mini houses and he is focusing on Arrakis. And he had the Harkonnens doing his dirty work, and so to say. So you're literally seeing, like, you know, these people that are trying to survive on this planet, but also seeing the planet getting destroyed and the resources getting pulled away. And for Paul, he has to grow up and grow pretty fast of what is going to be happening to him. He loses everything. So we're watching the arc of Paul himself trying to survive and actually understand what's happening here.
Yeah, there's a long lineage of him, and you feel like there's a lot of stuff that is behind the scenes, what he doesn't know, and that's his bloodline is carried way beyond right now and it's in the past. So it's like there's a lot of things that is working behind the lines. I get the feeling with Dune 1 after rewatching it. It's like, okay, I think it was part one, part two. It had to be that. It can't ever be, Dune 1 can never be by itself. So I think it was definitely, I enjoy it now watching part two. So I think it's a different movie to watch now with knowing what I know.
Yeah, I told Jeremiah as I walked out of the theater, I said, I did not understand why he split the movies up the way he did until I watched Dune 2. And there's clearly too much in Dune 2 to merge it with Dune 1, but there's not quite enough in Dune 1 to be a standalone movie, in my opinion. I think that, and maybe I'm wrong, but the fall of the House Atreides, the betrayal of House Atreides by the Harkonnens and the Emperor, they weren't around long enough for me to really be upset that they were all dying. It's like I didn't have enough scenes with Leto to really love him. I almost wish that they had ended the movie with that, you know, that death or whatever you want to call it, because I think the only character, truthfully, that I cared that died was Jason Momoa. And I thought Jason Momoa had a magnificent performance, which
he did.
I said that about Jason Momoa.
Right?
Saying quite
I thought the same thing. I was like, is this Jason Momoa? No way, this is Jason.
And he was great. Gunry or whatever, Gunny, kind of just ran out into the,
Josh Brolin
just kind of disappeared. And then the villains you didn't really get a good view of. And the only other person in the movie that had any type of performance was Oscar Isaac. And I will say Oscar Isaac was fabulous, but I didn't quite get a connection between him and Paul. Like, he didn't have an intimate moment, he didn't have enough intimacy with his son, in my opinion.
But how much intimacy do you need? That's the thing.
I think another 20 minutes. If I had another 20 minutes, and I'm just arbitrarily picking the block of time. Less Rebecca, because she's going to be in the movie for the rest of the time. But I wanted an emotional connection between Timothée and Oscar Isaac, two phenomenal actors. I wanted a scene that was deep and unabiding about honor and integrity and rising to a challenge. And they had an opportunity to do it earlier in the film when they were on their own planet, and I think that missed. It just didn't quite get there.
I have to disagree with you on that right there, because I feel like he did actually got that scene. He told him the son, like, you will always be my son, and you will always be proud for what you are and everything. I thought that was a really good moment for the first time for him. And you get the sense that Paul's the first time that he ever heard that.
When you get Oscar Isaac, who I would say has the ability to be one of the most engaging eye drawing character or actors up on screen. I think that he has a talent for just drawing eyes. I don't think he's a particularly great actor, but I think that we love to sympathize with him. Even as Poe fucking Decameron or whatever, we like following him. He should have had a death where we gasp. And I hate doing it, but I agree 100% with Sean, is that we didn't get enough of who he is. Yeah, we get this idea that he is a good guy. We get this idea that people respect him. But you know what? This is poor storytelling in this sense, because it's just telling us. It's not showing us anything. We have that moment.
So it's not binary. Hold on. It's not binary. It's not good or poor. There's degrees.
Right.
This isn't a poorly written movie.
No.
This
Sean,
area.
Let me just say that the pacing is problematic, and the pacing also includes the amount of time that we're giving certain characters. I think that the pacing with Oscar Isaac was poor, just with him. Now, I do want to also talk about, though, some other frustrations. Okay. Now, and I know it seems like I'm bashing it, but there are lots of things to talk about. Good.
Before you keep going, I think that the area that we're missing is after the helicopter whole scene with the spice in Arrakis, where where Paul kind of had his little breakdown in the desert and had his vision and was rescued and brought back onto the helicopter
by Josh Brolin. Yep.
By Josh Brolin. Mm-hmm. When they landed and that scene finished, there should have been something between father and son right there.
He did.
Something about something deep and unabiding. It should have been that was the last time that they talked. And like Brandon said, when Oscar Isaac dies, I was almost rooting for him to kill the Harkonnens versus like sad for Paul that he lost his dad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know what else you're going to feel the way how you feel about what you saw. I'm pretty sure what I saw was like, he was proud to be by his father. They had those moments together. He was standing next to his father for the first time. And even during that whole like helicopter situation where they were rescuing the machine, everyone finally got to see that this is not just a leader who gives a shit about the spice. He gives a shit about the people.
Yeah.
He's worried about the people. And so everyone is believing like, wow, this person is a different person who's ruling over us instead of the Harkins that has been abusing and killing our people here. Yeah. You see like the arc on that part.
When he met one-on-one with Harvey, remember in the like, there was like a meeting that he met. And I feel like that's the time where you got to see, you were saying that he's really for the people. Like, hey, I'm not here to steal.
Josh Brolin.
Yeah, Javier.
Javier. I'm sorry.
No, not Josh Brolin.
I'm sorry.
The other one.
Yeah, okay.
Like, I got a feeling like he was a leader. Like, he was a great leader. I got the feeling. And his son looked up to him with, like, his son. I got the feeling of, okay, his son was taking notes this whole time of what his dad is doing. And I mean, you can see that his son took the ring for his dad, and there was these little moments that I thought they had good connection between father and son. Moments they had together, like the time where he almost got killed by the little.
Oh, that was I like that too.
That was cool. The son, I thought the son was amazing in that scene. Paul. Yeah. That was a cool scene.
Listen, Eddie and Jer, I want to ask you guys a question.
Timothée.
Okay. I want to ask you guys a question because I'm not trying to change your mind. I want to vent some of my frustrations with the film. That's all it is. If Rebecca Ferguson's character had died at the end of 1, would you have felt sadder and more of just a letdown, a disappointment, a sadness if she had died over how you felt with Oscar Isaac when he died? Because to me, the answer is absolutely. And that's because her character is developed beautifully. Now, granted, yes, she has more screen time, which is what I'm saying. And I think what Sean's saying is give Oscar Isaac's character just a little bit more screen time. I think 10 more minutes of a 2.5-hour movie, you could have cut and shaved off some here and given it here. And that way, when he dies, we feel a gut punch. We feel connected to Paul. I did not feel connected to Paul. I'm sorry, I did not feel connected to his dad when he died.
Going back to part 1, what I did not like about part 1 in the very beginning was probably about the first 30 minutes of the movie, give or take. Anytime they introduced the bad guys, so David Bautista, did not like him at all. I thought he was poorly cast. I don't think he was the right guy. He made it. It was like I was waiting for him to try to crack a joke. Like I can't get out of my head of him being Guardians of the Galaxy. And I thought every time he was on the scene, I just cringed. And I thought there was going to be so much. The bad guys weren't scary enough for me. I felt like they weren't bad enough. They were.
I will say Stellan Skarsgård.
Baron was the main dude. He was
fucking terrifying.
We need to know more information about him. He floats. Why does he float? Is he 7 feet tall or is he 5 feet tall? He's got long robes. I did want to know.
Obese. He can't move his body.
But wait, Jared.
No, so he's using. Hold on.
And how do we know this?
Back up.
He can't move his body.
He's using the same technology that the people use to climb. It's all over his body. He's got these nodes all over his body, so that he can move because he's so fucking fat that he can't walk. He can sit in his chair. He can vape. He can do very few things, but. Like legitimately, he's got those nodes all over his body.
It's a beautiful scene. Him in his little jacuzzi, but at the same time, this is me just saying, you want a world build. Well, you have to character build too.
It's like Darth Vader in Star Wars. You didn't know that he was a person inside. You didn't know what he was or anything like that. You barely know anything about it.
You actually never in the first original trilogy. You actually never knew how he got into the suit.
Right.
To me, it's like do we have the patience for it, or now we're just trying to find just whatever little thing?
No, I think the problem is when you have a 2.5-hour movie versus an hour and 40-minute movie. I think that there's a major difference because if I'm going to sit there and I'm going to watch a 2.5-hour movie, I want to be given the information that can fit within 2.5 hours. And just because you can give a pretty picture,
I'm going to say something.
Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, no, but
hurt my feelings.
There were all the information was there. I mean, if it's not just like written out or like placed out there, then maybe that's the difference. But, it's all there for you. You understand that there is an empire. You understand the emperor just actually backstab a family. You see that this person is trying to figure this one out. I mean, everything is explained. I think David Bautista wasn't the greatest role, but he's a weak character. That's his whole thing. Yeah. He's all bark and no bite,
I see he was not great cast. I agree with that. I
would like a
little bit better in number 2. Well, the problem with that particular character is that I think he was in number 2. He was just outshunned and outstripped by Austin Butler. He was just nothing, like a throwaway character. I'm like, why are you even on screen when Austin Butler's in this movie? But we'll get to number 2. Anyway, I will say this negatively about, and this is like one rule of politics. You're never supposed to blame the voter. Okay. But I'm going to blame the audiences right now. People have been conditioned that a 3-hour movie is this huge waste of time and this huge epic. Well, guess what? This is fucking art. grow a pair and sit through it. Go look at Van Gogh, go look at Monet, go look at the water lilies, and take your time and enjoy someone's art. And if you can't sit there for 3 hours of your, you can scroll through Instagram for 3 hours on your ass on the couch. Sit through the fucking movie. I'm sorry. Sit through the movie. This is the most brilliant and beautiful visuals I've seen on screen in 25 years. Just enjoy it. I'm sorry. Enjoy it. And it's my rant is over, but it's well frustrating because people like, it's too long. I don't want to sit there. Shut up. Shut up and watch the movie.
Yeah. It's too long. I want more questions. I want more answers. I gotcha.
But I do agree, Brandon. I do agree with you that some of the questions should have been answered in a 2.5 hour movie. I agree with you there. I really do. An allocation of resources during your 2.5 hour movie, they better be damn good, well paced. And I don't think number one was that well paced.
I wanted Zendaya more. I had more
there the
questions
attack
of
happened, Sean, at me.
Zendaya and all the dreams that Timmy, all those dreams that he was having. I wanted a little bit more of. I felt like the witch side of him, the witch side of Paul, that happened so quick. So I had questions still, like, okay. So I did have questions of that during the movie. So it was like, I wish it went a little bit more into details of like, how strong is this witch inside his mom or inside of him? But you find out later, it's like one of those movies. It's like a trail. It's like you just don't watch Harry Potter 1 by itself. You have to have the other ones, or like Lord of the Rings by itself. You have the other ones, like Star Wars by itself. Dune is going to be a movie that I think people respect once it's all said and done. However, it's a movie you can't watch by itself. This movie.
Well said.
Yeah, I mean,
well said. Because here's the thing, Brandon. You want the reveal early, and I will say this: the predicate of the witches and the fact that Timothée and Paul's character is the only man who could drink the death potion, the only person. No, I'm just saying, but that whole arc of his mysticism and his being the Messiah, that is the reveal of the movie. That's the whole, like, that's the number 3 reveal. And we've gotten little pieces of it along the way, but the reason we haven't gotten the absolute is because, we're not there yet. It feels like we should be there, but we're not there yet.
We did get the information in the first one that the Bene Gesserits have been breeding certain bloodlines that help to produce a human that's able to see space and time. They have their own thing that their Messiah that they're looking at, and not the Messiah that they actually kind of propaganded over to that planet that they've been planning this whole thing. And that's the key right there. You're literally seeing like everything getting planned out before it actually happens. That the Bene Gesserit has been planning and is spreading this false rumor that the Messiah is going to be coming in or something like that.
Is it false? Is it?
I think I saw number 2.
You know what we feel like? I feel like we're all Anakin Skywalker calling the lightsaber a laser sword, and like that's what we are. That's what we're talking about. That's what we are.
No, it's like what I'm trying to say is that everything had its own chess pieces into this movie. You knew exactly what's happening. You knew exactly what the Bene Gesserits were actually controlling everything. They're the ones that set up everything. They're the ones that planned the whole, the Messiah.
There was a struggle within them as well, because the mom and the queen of the witches, I'm gonna call her.
Let's call it the mother. Yeah,
I feel like there was a struggle between them that you find out in part 2. But there was like the struggle that was just like, oh, you picked the wrong person, or something like that. And I felt like what was she trying to do? What was the mother of the witches?
So Lady Jessica was assigned to the Duke, right? And he fell in love with her. Okay. And so, by that, but she betrayed the mothers because by her having a son, now that son is destined to become the Harak or whatever that thing is called.
Or did she have the son to be the mother of the Savior? Like, is this a personal thing instead of her saying this is for Leto?
That's the thing here. What's her point of view? What is her whole overview of the power of the situation? You know what I'm
saying? Well, let's get to number 2 in a minute, but here I want to finish off number 1. So you've got this movie that sees Paul go from House Atreides strong to House Atreides fall. Paul goes into the desert, meets the Ferrymen. The Ferrymen basically are taking him to their palace in the desert. Okay, so that's essentially the rise and fall of number one. Is there any issue or any area of the movie that you wish they had spent more or less time on that you didn't get the payoff in number two? Because I feel like with Javier Bardem, we didn't get a lot, but we got the payoff in number two. With Zendaya, we didn't get a lot, we got the payoff in number two. Because it was mostly with the Ferrymen.
It was this Jameson guy, this James, the main person he killed in the end of one. He was dreaming of him. I felt like he had this conversation with him, and then overall, when he's face to face with him, did this other guy not have no idea who Paul was?
Part two explains it, that he's able to actually not just, see space and time. He's actually able to see multi different futures and everything like that. And he's able to actually Doctor Strange, exactly. He knows exactly at one point him and James have a great relationship, kind of like an Obi-Wan relationship.
But that never happened in this reality.
It didn't happen because he was able to see it. He was also able to see his own death and everything like that. I mean, you're getting the hindsight of like his ability to look between time and space.
Yeah.
And that he's on this path of blood, this holy war that he's freaking out on and everything like that, But he has the vision to be able to alter it. And that's how he's able to alter it with that battle between him and Jameis. And I thought that actually explained it, or actually broke it down pretty awesome. And by the way, fucking great hand-to-hand combat battles, man. I mean, I thought it was just fucking great.
That was nice. That was cool to see that.
Yeah.
Brandon.
So I actually have an answer for Sean. So I mean, we touched on it a little bit. To me, number one, the death of Leto did not pay off to me at all. But the other one that I think was really, really problematic is that, again, Denis spent so much time world building beautifully that he didn't focus enough on certain characters. He definitely did with Paul. He definitely did with Paul's mom. He didn't do it enough with the Baron. He didn't do it enough with the Harkonnens. I think that we needed to have more of an idea of who the bad guys were, and really kind of, maybe not all of the intrigue and the politics of it, but we don't even really get much more than just a brief mention of the Emperor. I think that Baron Harkonnen is too important of a bad guy, and possibly too well created of a bad guy, to not give enough focus in one to make his character have any purpose in two. Instead, they rely so much on Austin Butler's character, who was, by the way, fantastic
Amazing.
as a bad guy. Fan-fucking-tastic. But the problem is,
scary
you've got Baron Harkonnen, who is, by visuals, this imposing, terrifying creature, this thing, this person, machine.
No, I just want to say that if that's the movie you're looking for, watch the original, because it's over the head, over the nail, hammer down, plot, exactly what's going on, the villain, and this is a more abstract film. And the reason why I believe that it's not about the Harkonnens is because Denis chose to make this movie about Paul. And the Harkonnens are this much of Paul's story. The arc of the movie is Paul, not the Harkonnens.
Yeah.
Because and I think that was a directorial choice, because they focused way more on the Ferrymen, way more on Paul's development and his connection with Arrakis than the Harkonnens. So I agree with you that didn't happen, but I do think it was a stylistic choice by Denis.
Yeah.
All right, so as we close out our discussion of Dune 1, we're going to move into Dune 2, currently in theaters. And Brandon, why don't you take us through and kind of give us some facts on that one?
Yeah, so Dune 2, or should we say Dune Part 2, picks up nearly immediately after the events of the first film, with Paul embracing his role as leader of the Fremen as they battle the Harkonnen and Emperor for independence of their home planet. Now, as this is happening, Paul and Johnny, played by Zendaya, begin a romance that may or may not stand the test of war. Dune Part 2 has earned an IMDb rating so far of 9.0 out of 10, and has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 93% with the critics and an audience score of 95%.
So we've talked about all these characters and their development and what's going on. Basically, I'm just going to give an overview of what's going to happen in the first little part of the movie, which I think helps us kind of structure the discussion. Because while I think, number one, as we talked about, part one had some issues, I thought part two just started with a bang and kept going. I thought it was just beautiful, beautifully paced all the way to the very end. So basically you find Paul, and Paul is struggling to accept his role as leader of the Furman, and all the while you have the Harkonnens who have moved back in, who have started to start the spice production again. And as the movie progresses, you've got kind of like the insurrection of the terrorist group of the Furmans fighting against the Harkonnens, who are failing in the eyes of the Empire, and everything is kind of falling apart on Arrakis.
That's well said. All right, let's vote. That was perfect.
Yeah. So Jeremiah, this is for you. I know we're not in the same room, but I want you to feel this warm embrace that I'm giving you. Ready? Here it comes. To me, Dune 1 did not live up to the expectation that I had. To me, Dune 2 rectified all that shit. Okay, so let's start talking some positives about this movie, because Dune 2 takes Denis did what I think any great creator does, and it says, let's take a look at this movie that we created. Let's take a look at this thing. What are some of the problems that we have? And my opinion is, he said pacing sucked at times in 1. Pacing did not suck in 2. Okay. I got to be honest. I still didn't necessarily like it as a story because I'm just not a sci-fi fan. In fact, I really just don't like sci-fi. So this is a tough one because this is like the godfather, great grandfather of sci-fi. But what this movie does is it doesn't.
You don't like
marries,
sci-fi.
I hate sci-fi. Is it marries beautiful cinematography and a paced script that actually keeps me engaged. And this was a longer movie, and guess what? It did not feel longer. It felt shorter. It felt like I wanted even more from this movie than I did in part 1. So did you feel that hug, Jeremiah?
No, I feel the hug, and listen, like, I know you're not a science fiction fan. Like,
I really think he is, guys.
No. I don't think so. He hates He's a Star Wars fan, and he hates Star Wars most of the time. So it's almost like it's impossible.
Lord of the Rings. That's all
fantasy, bro.
That's all fantasy. That's fantasy.
Let me just explain. You know what? No. Let me just take 1 second and explain, because I actually had this conversation with Amanda yesterday, and I said, "God damn, I really hate sci-fi," and she said, "But you love Star Wars," and I said, "Yes." But if we're really looking at it, Star Wars is kind of this adventure swashbuckling film, and it just happens to be set in space. It really does, right?
Trying to put outside.
It's a Western. It's a Western. It's a samurai flick.
I mean this
it's
in
an adventure flick.
I mean this in the very nice way. A lot of the stuff that you like from Star Wars is basically off from Doom as the blueprint and everything like that. I mean, you want an empire, you have an empire.
No, he did, and he made it more accessible.
He put it to his own. He put it his own way. So I'm just saying that it's very funny for me. All these other movies have done like, oh, you are my father, or you the chosen one, and like when Dune comes out, it's just like, yo, we kind of did it first, but everything has already been done so many times.
I'm gonna say something negative about Brandon here.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay,
I feel like this is just
got his big boy pants on. He's fine.
It's on.
No, it's not. I promise you, it's fine.
See the turn and tables.
Turns and tables.
Oh my!
I will say this: Brandon doesn't like sci-fi until he does.
It's true.
Brandon doesn't like a genre until he likes it. And I'm telling you right now, he is the most hypocritical, fickle movie liker in the history of the world, because he absolutely will hate a genre, hate an actor, hate this, hate that, and then they'll produce a movie like, that was a great movie. That's good.
No, it's
really
true.
like that one.
It's true. And you know what? That is absolutely true. What it comes down to is I don't like the genre, but I like certain films. I don't like the entire of a director.
It's like food,
right?
It is
totally absolutely true. And no, Sean, it doesn't hurt my feelings, because I will be the first one to admit that my tastes in music, my tastes in film, my tastes in literature are literally so fucking wishy-washy. I get that. I 100% own it. But what I can tell you is that as an overarching genre, I science fiction and true action will be on the very, very bottom. Give me a drama. Give me heartbreak. Give me serious.
I understand the inaccessibility of science fiction. You just have to plow through.
You do.
And that's something that that you don't like to do, and I understand and respect it. But this movie it proves that if you plow through the first one and you get into the meat of what's going on, we talked about Oppenheimer. We've talked about all these different movies being great classic movies. This is perhaps one of the greatest expositions of science fiction on film that you possibly could ask for. Love it or hate it, it is beautifully directed, beautifully acted. Javier Bardem leads what is a stellar cast, and Javier Bardem gives a performance that is a unifying performance of and pushes the whole movie forward. And he is the backbone of Paul Atreides' rise from little boy to El Sayed. I mean, he is
so humble.
He's
so
it's
humble.
just Oh, as it is written, my friend.
He's so humble too.
It is a beautifully honest and so realistic portrayal of a human being with faith, right?
Yeah.
He sees the faith everywhere. He sees confirmation of what he believes everywhere, and then it turns out to be true. It's just beautiful. I really love this storyline. I really do.
That's the thing. What I think what this movie did is that they did the whole like chosen one. They did it in a very unique and different approach to it, because when you think about it, you did get an answer here. You did get an answer that we're able to break down that Paul may or may not be the right prophet, may be a false prophet, and maybe be using that as an opportunity for him to actually gain what he needs to do. But you also see that he is actually the Bene Gesserit's prophet, as the quasi Hardak or whatever that thing is, that he's able to see space and time, and he's able to actually maneuver and do what he needs to do after he drinks the water of life and everything. And I think they really broke that down really awesome. The first 20 minutes of the movie grabs you and it doesn't let go. Like, the world is breathtaking. The action is fantastic.
Yeah.
This one, like Sean said, you just went with it. It didn't stop at all, man.
The action didn't stop. For me, the story didn't stop.
Yes.
Every scene that you saw led you to the next scene, led you to some reveal.
Yeah.
I was really worried about the relationship between Paul and Zendaya Chevy.
I did too. I thought it was going to be Twilight-ish.
I thought it was going to be, they were going to turn it into this like
love story.
and it was going to be this like, we're going to go on the dunes together and we're going to camp together. And it was so organic.
Yep.
It was so organic and so natural. And then the ending where, you've got this love story you believed, I'll love you until I stop breathing.
Last breath. Yep.
Yeah. Paul knew, and this is where I think Zendaya acted beautifully, but her character is wrong. Paul knew that the Emperor would bend the knee. He knew the rest of the houses would never go for it. He knew what he was doing the entire time because he's seen it. That's why
he didn't want to go down to the south. He kept trying not. He was like, there has to be a different way. And I think everyone ended up pushing him. Hey, you have to do this. You have to do this. You're the leader of these people. And he didn't want that at first. And I don't think he wanted that until I think he was very happy to stay on this sand planet and almost just revenge his father and also free these people. I think that was it. And then all of a sudden it became something more. And I feel like that's where the mom stepped in a little bit and was able to finagle and poison him a little bit.
Even with that higher arc where I think that he doesn't want to take over the universe or the known universe, he has no interest in replacing the emperor. I think that his core principle remained through the whole film and continues on into part 3 in that his principal purpose was to free the Fremen from the Emperor, from the Harkonnens, and allow them to operate on Arrakis free of any interference. And I think that the only way that he found he could make that happen was essentially to sacrifice himself for the Fremen so that the Fremen could rise.
That's also, I think, why he pushed away Zendaya. I mean, he obviously did. He felt like if he would have stayed with her, he loves her so much, and he was trying to push her away to make sure she doesn't die. He feels he's afraid of her dying.
I mean, without getting all literary theory on this, I mean, his trajectory as the chosen one follows the Joseph Campbell hero's journey. I mean, 100%, right? And we see, and what I really appreciate it in the hero's journey, just quickly, is every hero in literature, from Greek mythology through the Bible, through Dune, Star Wars, it all follows the same trajectory, right? And you have this call to adventure, and they take this call to adventure, but they also have to have this rejection of this call, right? They don't want it. And I think that what this story did so well is it gave reason for Paul's rejection. It wasn't just like, I don't want to go do this because I don't want to do this, right? It was, I don't want to do this because I don't want to sacrifice the goodness that I have here. And I think that that is something that we don't necessarily get in a whole lot of these chosen one stories. And to be honest, I'm a little bit tired of this trope of the chosen one, right? We got Neo, we've got Luke Skywalker, we've got now Paul, right? We do it a little bit, and right, this is the most overplayed, and I say that knowingly that it's
Harry
the most
Potter.
common, right? But it's the most common, it's the most overplayed storyline in the history of stories. It is the classic storyline. I get that 100%. But what I think
couldn't agree with you more.
I think
but hold on, but with Austin Butler as the secondary figure on the same track, that's unique. You have to say that's pretty unique.
And I'll tell you this much: this was before Neo, and this was before Luke, and this is. I mean, you can't tell me that those movies that you're talking about and those chosen ones did not get the inspiration from this movie. You know,
100%. You mocked something, or you balked at something I said earlier, Brandon. That what's his name? Riff Gal Fran Talken.
Yeah,
whatever
Austin
the fuck,
Butler.
Austin Butler.
This might be me missing it.
Yeah.
This might be me missing it.
So hold on. You're missing it. Let me explain it, because you're missing it. The Bene Gesserits have chosen him as the controllable figure to essentially ascend to the top of the Harkonnen family and perhaps the Emperor. She is carrying his child to extend the line of the Harkonnens. Nope. There is no doubt that Paul Atreides and
Austin Butler,
Austin Butler's character are on parallel journeys chosen by the Bene Gesserits to get to the top. Now, the fact, hold on. Don't shake your head.
You're wrong.
Right.
You're wrong, but I want to hear it, and then I'm going to tell you how you're wrong. Go ahead.
I
want to hear it.
All right, tell me how I'm wrong.
No, what you're wrong, and you admitted it.
Hold on. Jeremiah.
Bring Jeremiah.
Do you agree with what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree. You have Paul. It's almost like their backup plan. You get it's like they had a backup plan, and he came out of nowhere, and he was amazing. Like you got the whole scene. Put your left hand in this box, and you have the needle. He was also possessed. That was Austin Butler was.
It's like the Bene Gesserits were doing the whole political side of everything, dude. I'll tell you this much, the reason why the Emperor got rid of the Atreides is because the Bene Gesserit made that happen. They're like the Littlefinger of Game of Thrones. They have their finger in every situation to make sure that they actually rise on the top.
Okay, let me explain
how are we wrong,
how
Brandon?
You're wrong, because all three of you have literally just explained how you're wrong in your thing. Here's what I'm saying, and Sean, this is what you said. You said that Austin Butler is vying to be the one, the chosen one, okay? He is not vying to be the chosen one. No. Because the chosen one is somebody with these... No.
I didn't say chosen one. Hold on.
Yes, you did.
No, I did not say chosen one. I said, no, to lead the empire.
Oh, well, yeah, now...
To lead the empire is what I said.
If you redefine it to what I'm saying, then yes, that's absolutely true. He is one that is going to possibly be in line to lead the empire. Absolutely. But what I'm saying is he is not in line to be the one. He is absolutely one who has been chosen by the Bene Gesserits to be controllable. I absolutely agree with that. But this idea, and what I'm arguing, is that he has no claim as the one. Now, his child, maybe, I don't know, but not him. Paul is the chosen one. He is the Neo. He is the Luke Skywalker. He is the Jesus Christ.
Paul fills the prophecy.
Absolutely.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying.
Right. But what I guess what I'm saying is that what I'm saying is from the inception of Paul and the inception of Austin Butler, both of them, from the Bene Gesserit's perspective, were vying for the ultimate leadership of the universe as they knew it, to take over for the Emperor and marry the Emperor's daughter. That was the whole fucking arc of the Bene Gesserits. Now,
I agree with you.
The fact that he fulfilled it, that Paul fulfills a separate prophecy and is causing the Fremen to unite and rise up and defeat the Empire through the Holy War, that's a completely different storyline than what we were talking about. But we're on the same page.
The best thing about that part, Sean, is the Ben and Gesserit created that whole lie.
Yeah.
They created that whole situation to actually backfire on them for it to actually explode in their fucking face, which is the funniest thing, dude. And a lot of people have been saying that Paul is kind of the villain. I don't see him be a villain at all at this, dude.
No.
He pretty much Doctor Strange this whole thing. He only saw one path and one way to actually make sure that the planet is going to be saved, his people are going to be saved, and the one that he loves is going to be saved. And that this is what's so good about this movie is that he is going on the path that he has feared the most, and that he's going to become everything that he has hated or he's feared to become, you know? And I think it's so sad. It has an Empire Strikes Back feeling.
Yep.
If you look at villains and prophecies in general, it is the bad guys that often create or are the creator of their own destruction. There's a historical literary theme that the villain creates the hero that will one day destroy them simply out of fear. And this, yet again, is what happens in this movie. Brandon,
no, so absolutely, right? And I mean, let's get all literary theory again, right? You're talking about his Hamartia or Harmatia, depending on your pronunciation. But it's this fatal flaw. And every single villain has got this. I think that maybe one of the best places, Sean, to look at this fatal flaw is Bond villains, right? They always create their own downfall. And this is something that goes literally to biblical times, to Greek mythology, goes beyond biblical times to Greek mythology and Roman mythology. But no, what I think is interesting, and I'm going to say it as a joke, but then I want to explore this. But I was a little bit shocked that Rebecca Ferguson turned full Post Malone. I wanted to see what your thoughts were on those tattoos. But secondly, I do want to talk about her character because she was so central. She was so central to the first one, and we talked about this. But to me, that was one of the negatives: is that we were so focused on her that we probably missed a little bit more out on Leto. But I wanted to see what you guys thought of her, because she takes kind of a major back seat in this film as far as screen time, but screen presence.
I love the whole scene of where she took over as Mother Nature. I don't know who she took over as.
Let's call her the Grand Poobah, the mother of all mothers.
So she took over that old lady's job. It looked like, and you got the idea. That's when the first, I think, pregnant. Like, oh, she's pregnant. We messed up. We what have we done? I mean, she made that. I think they figured out her role correctly in part 2. You know, she give her more important scenes, but give her less. And it's take her a step back, and she's, and just every time you put her back on screen, make it look like it's developed, that her plan is developed. I think that's probably what we did great in part 1 is, part of this plan almost is she's developed it with her Jedi mind trick sisters in the background. They're doing their work in the background secretly. So it's like, it's all the plan is coming to a head soon.
The other thing that we're kind of overlooking with part 2 versus part 1 is the structure of the movie. So it is very difficult, as we learned in Lawrence of Arabia, to follow one character through an entire film. Okay. So if you think about, movies in general, it's very difficult to follow one storyline across a 3-hour movie. It is much easier to follow 3 storylines through 3 hours movie. Every time you kind of get stale with one, you pop into the next, see what happened. And in this film, you really did a beautiful job of popping in and out of storylines. You had kind of what was going on with the Harkonnens and the Empire, and the Emperor, You had Paul's training and the insurrection that they were leading against the Harkonnens. And then you had kind of what was going back at Furman Camp. And that kind of was the bridge between the 3 storylines. And I thought that created the pacing that we enjoyed.
Yes.
Versus the first movie where it was Paul. Yep. And I think that he, Timothée Chalamet said something beautifully. Timothée said something. He said in his career, he's never been able to slip back into a role. He's never come back into a role. And he was able to watch himself and learn what he didn't like about his performance in the first movie and build on it and become better. And I think Denis did the same thing, is he looked back on film 1 and said, okay, what worked, what didn't work. You just have a better tone, a better feel, a better everything for it.
And this is a hardcore adaptation, man, for like one of the most craziest Bible novels of science fiction and everything like that. And to really to like place it on the screen and set all the pieces where you're actually following it and everything like that, I think it goes a very long ways, man. That's what's so number 2 is so good. Is like you have 3 different stories, man. But what's really cool about it is that at the end of the movie, it felt like a theater play. The final scene, like it was like a Shakespearean play where you had all the characters in its right place at the time, and it felt such a it felt like they were all like supposed to be there, and it was freaking awesome.
It did. It's exactly that's literally one of the best ways to describe it, because I felt like it was okay. All the pieces are set. Bring in the prisoners. Let's play out in front of everyone what's been happening behind the scenes, and we're going to reveal it all and leave nothing on the table. And I thought that was, apart from being absolutely a beautiful scene, having the one-on-one battle between Paul and, what's his face?
Austin
Butler. I think that was probably. It's
Fade Rotha. It's
Fade Rotha. Sorry.
Fade Rotha.
I'm sorry.
I call him Rama.
No. It was the Vader versus Luke scene from Return of the Jedi. Yeah. It was this beautiful moment of battle. Man. That was just gorgeous.
Like that's what made 2. It was they had actually created this villain. Yeah. And I think Austin knocked it out of the park. I think he is the reason why this movie is amazing. They needed someone like that to round the cast out a little bit.
Yeah.
This cast is everyone on this. I mean, this cast is probably the best looking cast ever of all time.
The best actors of their generation.
So I can say this now because I finally finished it after 6 years. But to me, I'm watching this and I'm getting so many Game of Thrones vibes. I don't know if you guys got this. And Jeremy, I know the answer is yes.
Oh yeah.
Dune definitely was inspirational to Martin, and then Game of Thrones, the development of Benioff. I know that. But for me, I'm looking at it. I'm going, man, I see Daenerys, Khaleesi. I see her in Paul a little bit. You were saying that is Paul the bad guy? No, but I do think that he gets a god complex, rightfully so, because he is a god, basically. But he gets a little bit of a god complex, which to me was very, very similar to Daenerys cocky at the end. Very, very cocky at the end. A little
cocky around that meeting, right, with all the heads.
Yeah, and then spoiler alert: when Arya, stabs and kills the Ice King or the Winter King, right? To me, that was so similar to the way that we have this hidden knife moment that just comes out of nowhere and stabs and kills Roth Habara.
In all fairness, he removed it. He removed it from himself,
which is pretty badass. I gotta be honest. I don't know if you guys, and real quick, Jared, I don't know if you guys were expecting this, but I was absolutely expecting this. Again, taking from previous literature, is I was waiting for Paul to die, and then for his Paul was going to die. His what do you call it? His revival, his resurrection. Thank you. His resurrection from death. I was waiting for that, and honestly, maybe it's because I was building up so much. I'm thinking, God, that would have been so badass if he'd done that, because that would have been this moment where he stands up and everybody bows, like everybody bows. He didn't quite do that, but at the same time,
he sort of had
a couple of knives in him. I know.
If you guys watch the first movie, he literally takes the spear, the way how he defended with Josh Brolin when they were actually practicing in his room. He does exactly the same move to Austin Butler, and he was able to actually use that in the last battle, which I thought it came full circle of how he was actually trained by one of the best swordsmen out there, But Austin Butler, dude, I think you said that, Javier Bardem stole the movie. I think Austin Butler stole this movie, man. I think he was one of the best villains I've seen in quite a long time. I wish he had more screen time, and I wish he could have been actually put more in the first movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
The anticipation of him actually coming for the final confrontation. But the director said pretty much when he looked at Austin Butler, he described how he portrayed the villain as a psychopathic killer, an Olympic swordsman master, kind of a snake, but also has that Mick Jagger vibe to it. I guarantee you, when you think of Austin Butler, you will not think of Elvis anymore. Like, this guy literally just put this monster thing on.
Jeremy had to remind me. He leaned over. He's like, "You know who that is?" I'm like, "I don't know. He's fucking scary though." He's like, "That's Austin Butler." He's like, "It fucking is."
See, and here's where I fear for this franchise, and I fear for kind of the third movie. And me and Jeremiah talked about this a little bit. The reason Lord of the Rings is some of the greatest film ever made is because it's got some of the greatest source material ever written. J.R.R. Tolkien is perhaps the greatest storyteller of fiction fantasy of all time. I mean, I think he's one of the best. My problem with Frank Herbert is that a better writer would have realized that Dave Bautista's character should have been removed in its entirety and replaced with Austin Butler from the beginning. And you have 2, not 3. And all of a sudden the story gets leaner. It gets better. You have a more dynamic approach to the Harkonnens. You don't have a wasted character in Dave Bautista, who really literally did nothing except fail the entire movie, where you didn't need it. You didn't need him. You didn't need him at all. You could have got
any other Joe Schmo as like some guy that would just like, hey,
just put Austin Butler there.
Yeah. No, you needed that. Hey, we need this. The first nephew messed up, and then now we have the next nephew. There's
always been told, like with brothers and stuff like that. Yeah,
I'm really worried about number 3 because he set the scene. He's done a George R. Martin. He's killed half his cast. Yeah. He's killed the Harkonnens. He's killed, basically Bautista's alive somewhere. So, oh no, he's not. He got killed by gunnery. Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
So everyone's dead. Yeah, so everyone's dead except for the Furman, who are now attacking off planet the Nine. I don't know what's going on. Like, I don't know how this is gonna in 2.5 hours how this is gonna finish out.
It's gonna be like the Return of the King now. It's gonna be like the Holy War of like all the houses and
all the other houses don't want Paul to be the emperor, but Paul's main. I don't know what you guys know about Paul. I mean, if they go anything with his backline, his main greatest accomplishment has nothing to do with what he just did. It's his son, right? He creates the god emperor. His son becomes like this super emperor of all emperors.
Is that in Children of Dune?
But you also have the daughter too. The sister as well, who will be powerful.
Who speaks to mom, which was just something that got me a little bit. I mean, what would you guys think? The baby's having a conversation with mama. I got to be honest, that one threw me for a little bit.
And then also,
it's going to affect my score. You betcha.
She doesn't like what you're saying. Who the fuck? It made me question, like, who the hell is
does she have ears?
It made me question, like, did I miss somebody? Somebody else is in the room. Who else is in the room with them?
I can't do it. If you can handle some of the other things, and all of a sudden that one got to you,
yeah,
it gets you. Man. I can't do it.
I mean, the Harkonnen guy, the Baron Harkonnen, requires a pit of black tar to survive, and you're worried about the fucking baby talking.
Yeah,
like,
because
really?
You know what?
I mean,
I've seen the importance.
A 90 meter sandworm comes out of the ground, and he fucking rides it in the middle of the desert. And
I got something to say. I got something to say about the sandworms. Okay, so
that was amazing. Those are amazing scenes.
They were amazing scenes. But did anybody else have this question of like, okay, so to catch a sandworm, you got to get up on a hill, you got to set the thumper, you got to wait, and then you got to jump and grab hold. And then next thing you see, there's 40 people riding one sandworm, and she's in a little carriage. Like, how the hell did they get that carriage on there? Did they throw her?
I thought that the whole training sequence of Paul,
amazing.
And I call it the training sequence, but it was really the I would say the assimilation of Paul into the Furman culture. Was just so well done. And once again, Denny took his time. He didn't rush any aspect of it. That could have been over in 15 minutes. It could have been a Rocky type cutting.
We could have had a montage.
Luke Skywalker doing flips with. And instead you had like really great scenes. And one of my favorite scenes when they're in the tent and picking his name. And his name has this meaning, and it's the mouse in the desert. And it's just like, these are the things to me that make the prophecy so much stronger, because you have not just a prophecy and he fulfills prophecy, but he's actively living up to the prophecy with certain actions or certain events. And I think that is something that's so interesting.
And that right there is what 2 does brilliantly that 1 struggles with. Maybe it's purposeful. Maybe it's this world building. I mean, if we're trying to give the benefit of the doubt, then that's what it is. But 1 struggles where 2 succeeds. And I do think if I'm looking at it saying, this is Denis looking at his film, part 1, and saying it was beautiful. It was great on so many levels. How do we make it better? And right there, he has succeeded, which you say that you're worried about 3.
Can I ask you a serious question? Yeah. Do you think that New Hope is a better movie because of Rogue One?
I'm going to say something that you don't want to hear. I don't. I know that you do. I know that you feel that Rogue One has built the backstory up. To me, A New Hope is a brilliant movie. And guess what? If A New Hope was it, like George Lucas intended, and we only got 1 Star Wars film, I would say that it stands the test of time. I think that is a brilliant film on its own, on a technical level, on a storytelling level, on a character level. I do.
Do you think Dune Part 2 made Dune Part 1 better?
And I'm going to be honest, okay? And I'm not going to say no, and I'm not going to say yes. I'm going to say I haven't. I would have to watch 1 again with the knowledge of 2. So I can't really answer that, but I would say that I'd be willing to give it another chance. Not right now. I'm a little duned out, but I would give it another chance with the knowledge that it's going to get better. Okay.
Jeremiah, same question.
No, yeah, it's the overall picture, the whole story. I can watch Dune 1 now and know exactly what's going to happen and actually see things that they were actually like planting in. When you watch that one scene in Dune 1 where he's freaking out in the tent, and having those visions about him, this fire of rage and everything like that. And it shows him in space on a ship, dressing all in black and everything, and him like looking down on these people. It actually tells you that, yeah, he's a Huracan. Actually, it actually tells you that, where you're like, oh my God, it was all right there in front of us, So it, for Dune 2, it helps Dune 1, but it's the overall story that it completes it. So yeah, I have to agree, man. Dune 2 makes Dune 1 better.
Eddie?
I fully agree with Jeremiah. Dune 2 made me look at Dune 1 and just like, okay, it's a movie that I was gonna say it has to have each other. And it made me I was like, I enjoy Dune 1 now because I've watched Dune 2. So I enjoyed a lot more. I didn't really enjoy Dune 1 by itself. After Dune 2, I was like, okay, I enjoy it now. And I think it's one of those movies that's hard to grade. Like I enjoy Dune 1, let's not say that, but I just had so many questions. And now I go back, it's like, okay, like I see a little bit more of this world that they created so fast. And I think they got lost in just too much character development in Dune 1.
I think two things can be true at the same time. I think Dune 1 is made better absolutely by Dune 2. I also think that Dune 1 suffers from exactly what Brandon's talking about, as a lack of pacing. And I do think Denis looked at Dune 1 and said, okay, how do I make Dune 2 even better than Dune 1? What do I do to fill the gaps and make it better? Now, I hope he does the same thing with Dune 3. My only fear, and then this is what I'm getting to Brandon. I want Brandon's opinion on this because he was about to give it. My only fear is that the source material is going to fail him. Is that the source material is literally not good enough to give us the resolution of the story that we want. That's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah. And so here's what I was going to say is I don't have the pessimism maybe that you have. I don't know the source material. I don't know where the story goes. I don't know if it finishes. I know that there's 20 some Dune books written from Herbert and Herbert's son and Herbert's, ghost author. I get that. What I'm hoping, and this is definitely not going to happen, if Denis wants to, I think a great choice, and this is not going to give fan service, but I think a great choice to the story is to turn this, Jeremiah, you said this, into a Shakespearean third act. What I mean by that is focus completely on the politics and the intricacies of it instead of an all-out, violent escapade. I think that if they turn this into just a battle, basically a Two Towers, which is a brilliant movie, one of the greatest movies ever made, but you turn it into a movie that is so focused on the war itself and not the intricacies of the war, I think you're going to lose out on everything that you built up with part 1 and definitely part 2. I think that we have to see the workings of the machine instead of focusing so much on what the machine actually does to to each other.
And we need an arc for Paul that I fear is already gone. The only thing that Paul can do is regress. He can't progress. He can go back to the way he was prior to trying to take control of the Empire and go with Zendaya. That's the only way he gets with Zendaya.
That's what I want. I would like that.
She's going to die.
I feel like he's going to do a little bit more evil. He's going to do a little more evil. I feel like he's going to do wicked, and then he's going to realize what he's doing, and then he's going to go back and live happily ever after with Zendaya.
But there's no characters for salvation.
No. I think you guys just going to have to wait, because I think Denny even said that I think Denny's going to go a different approach on what he's going to do with Dune Messiah. I hear what you guys are saying, but I thought that Dune 1 had all the political side to what you needed to know what was going down with the Bene Gesserits, with each house and everything like that. The houses
we only got 2 houses.
Explained in the movies, man. Actually, you got 5 houses. I mean, it is Game of Thrones. These houses that are trying to get the throne at the end of it and everything like that. I don't know what's going to happen with Paul, but if Disney had this movie, it would have been like the most happiest ending and shit like that, and not the ending that we just saw, which I thought was fantastic.
It was fantastic.
Well, I'm in the middle of the Lightning Thief series, the Percy Jackson series. I'm going to pause that series, and I'm going to read Dune, and I'm going to read the Messiah.
Just do Messiah, because from my understanding, Denny is like, I'm done. That's my last one there.
I know, but you know me. You know me, right? You know me. I if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it right.
We didn't really talk about the music, did we? Did I miss that?
No, we didn't.
Music was one of the best of all time, I heard.
Brandon didn't like it. I thought it was one of the best.
I didn't say I didn't like it. I literally didn't even. I can't tell you what it sounds like. I can't remember it at all. Exactly.
There were some good ones. There were some good.
No, it was a lot of tonals. It was good. It was good.
I actually think it was one of his best scores. I mean, especially with that piece. A time of quiet between the storms. He makes the music. Part of the character of the story and everything like that. And I think he just killed it here on this.
Brings it to life, man.
It was good. It was very, very good. I liked the music.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of review. Now it's time of the podcast where each of the hosts provides a score on the following scale. Gurney, can you please provide the scale, please?
Talk about his epic comeback in part 2. I
thought he was dope.
Yeah. 0, the perfect movie. You don't need shit to enjoy it. 1, a feel-good first cocktail. 2, a happy buzz. 3, you're gonna Uber or Lyft home. 4, rough morning watch of shame. 5, blackout shit-faced spring break drunk. All right, gentlemen, write down your scores. Let's do Dune 1 first.
Yeah.
Okay, Dune 1.
Dune 1, ready?
Ready?
On your mark.
1,
set,
2,
go.
3. Whoa, I'm the highest?
You are, Sean. I'm going to go ahead and take this one first,
Wow,
because I feel like this is something that shouldn't have happened. But Sean, this is why we do the new system. Here's what I think.
Yeah.
I think that a movie, a movie can fail on so many different levels, and I do think that Dune 1 failed on many different levels, and at the same time be one of the most important films to come out in recent years. We keep throwing this out this season. I feel like this is like the film school season, because we keep talking about this is the type of film that is going to be analyzed and looked at and learned about in years and years to come in film school. We said that about Oppenheimer, and I feel like absolutely we need to talk about this with Dune 1. Is Dune 2 a better movie? Abso-freaking-lutely. But what Dune 2 succeeds in is where Dune 1 failed, and that means that Dune 1 established itself for better and worse. And so for me, Dune 1 is a movie with a lot of ups and a lot of downs. Something I didn't get a chance to say is it took characters and stripped them of the importance that they needed. It took actors and didn't allow them, whether it was through dialogue or directing or whatever it was, they took good actors and gave them parts that just didn't seem to fit. Josh Brolin, who I think is a fantastic actor, Sean, I know that you kind of disagree with me on that. Josh Brolin was terrible. I thought that the writing for him was terrible, and I think that his writing did not seem to match the other characters. And so for me, there's a lot of misfires in this. However, and this is the big however, this movie established itself and it established its world in such a dominating way that I don't care if you like the plot or not, you think it's slow or not, the pacing's good or not. It established something that can be built upon and is built upon in part 2. And so in that sense, my score is not indicative of how I feel about 2. It's indicative of the way that Denis Villeneuve created an entire world, whether it's sci-fi or not, and he made us part of that world for 2.5 hours. So I'm giving it a 2.62, and I'm going to throw it over to Eddie. I'm going to throw it to you, buddy. Yeah.
I'm towards the other side of that, very close to Brandon's store, but I think it's a little bit better than the average movie. So I really thought Dune 1 was able to establish a story. It did it. Was a little bit slower than I wanted, yes. I still think Timothée, Paul, I really enjoyed his character in this movie. I really enjoyed Josh Brolin. I really enjoyed Javier. I felt like all these characters in this movie, they were great. I felt like there was chances that they missed it. Oscar was amazing. Oscar Isaac. I am hoping that maybe they can do flashbacks with him because I feel like his story wasn't said enough. And his how he led. I enjoy this movie, and I feel like this is, like I was saying earlier, this is a movie that I think 10 to 20 years from now, it's going to get more recognition. So as the whole chapter closes for Dune, but I give this a 2.25. So I give this a 2.25. That's a happy buzz and a half a shot almost. A 2. What did I say? 2.25?
2.25.
I wrote down 2.24. I'm sorry. So it's a 2.24. My fault.
So I was actually really surprised that I had the highest score here, mainly because I really enjoyed this movie, and I think it's a good movie. The problem that I have with it is everything we've discussed. The pacing. I think I kind of look at it from a different perspective. This movie is absolutely stunningly beautiful, but it's not new. The visuals are not new. Lawrence of Arabia did these visuals, and Brandon so pointed out that we haven't released that episode yet, and it is coming, but just bear with us. This movie did these epic scenes in the desert better than anyone has ever done them before, but we've seen them tried before. We've seen the Luke Skywalker with the two sons. We've seen the epicness of this movie. Is it cleaner? Absolutely. Is the film better? Yes, because technology is that much better. And the design of this movie is beautiful. But you can't just use the visuals. Early on, Brandon said something that I think was the perfect description: form over substance. The stylistic choices of the movie overcame the script and the pacing. And I think that this movie could have been 25 minutes, maybe 35, even 45 minutes shorter, or given some more exposition about the Emperor, given some more exposition about the storyline. It could have built the story a little bit more. It just overall, I think that he chose to get carried away with stylistic choices and neglected the story. I also agree with Jeremiah that without this movie, you don't get number 2. They're connected, they're linked. It's all one big storyline. But I do think that 1 is hard to watch. So I'm going to give this movie a 3, which is a Uber lifting home. It's slightly worse than an average movie. And the reason that I give this is because it's inaccessible. And I love science fiction. There are ways to make science fiction accessible, and they chose to be difficult. They chose not to engage and give you a lot of exposition. And I think that it suffered because of it, and I give the score because of it. So, Jeremiah.
Oh, listeners, I'm going to be the half man out on this review for Dune Part 1. I think it's one of the better movies that's come out in years, next to Oppenheimer, before Oppenheimer came out. I think it's one of those movies that redefine how you are able to push imagination and reach such great heights. I think the casting is great. I think the writing is fantastic. The visually and breathtaking. I think that they set everything perfectly up for you to really get the understanding of what's going to be happening. and set kind of like the whole like arc of the story. And the story is Paul's arc, and he's coming to grips with his path, and it's the end and the beginning for him for this film. And I thought they actually did it really tastefully on this. And then, again, I knew when I'm coming into this movie or seeing that movie that I knew that that was not the end of the movie, and I was totally fine with that. Does it have slow places? It does, actually. Should they have put more of what scenes from part 2 into part 1? Absolutely. I think they failed on not bringing Austin Butler into part 1, where you can have this hardcore of a villain to reach for the final confrontation at the end of part 2. But that's just me just picking small potatoes here. I think this is Star Wars for adults. I think it's fantastic. And I believe what Eddie said is that 20 years from now, people are going to look back at this film and see what they were able to do. I gave this a half a shot for me, dude, because I actually love this film. Yeah, I think it's one of the better movies that's come out in the last 10 years, and I love it to death.
When we combine the scores and divide by 4, what does Dune Part 1 get an average rating of?
It gives a 2.0275. Ooh, this is getting good. 2.0275.
So, Jeremiah, where does that put us on the list of movies that we've reviewed?
By itself.
It is by itself, actually. It's literally by itself. It's number 41 now.
What is better than Dune Part 1? So what is on the list before it?
3:10 to Yuma, Young Frankenstein, Edward Scissorhands, Independence Day, Hunger Games, Deadpool, Matrix.
Okay, what is worse than Dune Part 1?
Breakfast at Tiffany's, Goonies, Quiet Place, John Wick 2.
I'm a little sorry. I rated it as high as I did. I apologize, guys. That seems like I was the odd man out there. I'm sorry.
No, I was the odd man out here. I'm the one who actually loved the shit out of this one.
Sean.
All right. Yep. That's just fucking the way it goes. All right. Dune number 2. Let's show your love or hate for Dune Part 2.
That's just a normal number. It's going to be just a roundabout number.
All right. Are we ready?
Yeah. That's not good.
Oh, maybe God, Ed, if you and I are doing the same
thing.
One.
Okay.
2, 3.
Oh,
okay.
Eddie, you're going first, buddy. Eddie's got it.
All right. So
I literally put a fucking worm on my shit. Sorry.
All right. So what this movie was able to establish is everything that I was hoping for the Dune franchise. It gave me what I was hoping to see between Zendaya and Timothy's character, Paul. It wasn't too much. It was perfect. And then it had some cool, oh my God moments. I was all in with the Sand Planet and with this group. I just enjoyed everything about this movie. And then you threw in a badass villain who was Austin Butler, who he nailed it. He hit a home run. And, Timothy's and then also Zendaya, they're both just already scoring. And then you have Javier. He was making me laugh, and then also just like, yeah, I'm starting to believe too. It's everything I was hoping for a part 2 movie. Everyone knows I don't like to give zeros for part 2 movies, aka Empire Strikes Back. Sorry, guys.
You don't like to give zeros no matter what, bro.
Yeah. So this is actually this movie was 2 hours and 45 minutes, and it did not feel like 2 hours and 45 minutes. But overall, I'm giving this movie a 1. This movie is a 1 for me. So it's a feel-good first cocktail. I think it's way above an average movie for me. Brandon.
All
right. So, Eddie, well said, as always, bud. No, I mean, I think I've kind of made myself clear, so I'm going to be really short about this. I think the 2 triumphs for 1 fell short. I think that 2 beautifully sets up where 3 could go, and I love the fact that we're here debating where 3 could go. I think that's what makes this such an important film as far as its import on the entire series. And I do think that Villeneuve has really taken a really critical eye at what he created in 1. And he's just perfected it in a near perfect way. It goes without saying that I just don't like hardcore science fiction. I guess I'll kind of define it at that. Hardcore science fiction. And this is hardcore science fiction, and it's hardcore science fiction done really, really well. With that being said,
Fountain.
The Fountain is not science
I heard
fiction.
the
The Fountain
Fountain.
is cerebral, and
Alien.
it is
Aliens.
I did not
number
like Alien.
8 on the it's number 8 on the best science fiction movies of all
The
time.
Fountain.
What's that movie with Super 8? Is it Super 8?
Yeah, I actually didn't like
yeah,
Super 8
keep
very
going.
much.
I'm sorry,
Just
Brandon.
saying.
I'm sorry.
Fuck off. But listen, here's what I'm saying. 2 did it good. 1 didn't do it good. 2 gets a 1.5. There, I'm done. So move on. Sean, what did you get?
Well, you gave it a 1.5. I thought you gave it a 0.5.
Sean, I'll go. Actually, I'll wrap this one up pretty fast on this one. This is why the reason why you go to the movie theaters to experience something like this. I think this is the reasons why cinema will survive is because you have a movie that kind of changes everything how we look at movies. And I think this movie nailed it. I think the acting is fantastic. I think Denis Villeneuve actually did something beautifully. The cinematography is amazing. The score is absolutely stunning. You're looking at some of the best actors of our generation, the up and comers. I mean, it had everything perfect what you want in a second part of a film. Actually, this is kind of the modern day Empire Strikes Back, but I would even say it's the modern day of Godfather Part 2, especially with Paul's character's arc. I mean, he's becoming like Michael Corleone. He's brought into something to do which he never wanted to do in the first place. I think the ultimate revenge with him and the Baron was fantastic. This is the reason why you go to movies. Like I said, man, like I love this movie so much, dude. I'll eat this movie up for days, man. I think next year when the Oscars come around, it's going to be nominated for so many awards, and even for Best Picture. And this is a 0 for me. So I'm pretty. I want to go to see this movie again and again and again because
you watched it already twice, huh?
Yeah, I love it so much.
Yeah.
Like I want to see it again. And when you see it in IMAX, see it in the biggest screen, man, because it deserves to be seen like that, dude. It's an experience, and that's what I'm trying to say. It's an experience, man. So it's a 0.
All right, so I'll finish this out. A couple of weeks ago, we did Oppenheimer to lead off season 5. I guess a couple months ago now. And I believe I gave that movie a 0. I think that this is as close to that movie as you could possibly get without going over. But at the same time, I think this movie is magnificent from a couple of different perspectives. Number one was pacing and action. I thought that it kept you rolling the entire time. The character development was fantastic and absolutely second to none. And Jeremy, you said something that I think, regardless of what we score it, is the absolute truth. This is the type of movie that makes you want to go to the theaters. This is why theaters were created. This is why communal watching of movies is so important. Because you hear people and ooh, and you actually can get absorbed in that final battle between Paul and Austin Butler. I actually was afraid that Paul was going to die, and that to me has created like that. That's hard to do for me. Is to put that fear in me. Usually I could kind of care less, whatever. I just want to know what the conclusion of the story is. I found myself wrapped up in Paul's story. Second of all, the movie, the score, the cinematography. There's 2 scenes that I will point out that made me score this movie where I scored it. The first is when Timothée is running on the ridge to get onto the sandworm. And Denny waits and waits for him to disappear into the sun to make his cut. And it is the most beautiful 45, 55 seconds of film that I've seen in a long time. The second one was when he and Austin Butler are fighting in that room, and you've got that window overlooking Arrakis, and you've got that orange, that color coming through, and you've got their silhouettes, and I'm like, this is Return of the Jedi. This is the silhouette of the 2 people fighting for the fate of the Empire. And I thought those 2 scenes, those 2 scenes made this movie epic. And this movie is epic. I'm going to give it a 0.5. All right, when you take those scores and divide by 4, what does Dune 2 get an average rating of there, Mr. Eddie?
It gives us a 0.75.
So that smells like top 7, but let's see where we're at. Jeremiah, where are we? Where are we at with that?
It's top 15 actually. It's in the top 15 range.
Okay.
But
so
it's
what
fine.
is better than Dune 2?
So what is better than Dune 2 is Pulp Fiction, Sound of Music, The Dark Knight, Perks of Being a Wallflower, Terminator 2, Judgment Day, and Godfather.
Yeah, well.
What is worse?
What is worse? Brandon's not going to like this. Gladiator is worse. The Shining, The Departed, Scream 6, Breakfast Club, No Country for Old Men.
Oh, God.
I think I ruined No Country for Old Men. All right, if you enjoyed our review or a fan of the podcast, we ask that you please subscribe wherever you're listening. If you listen to us on Overcast, give us a physical review in that, write it out. That'd be very, 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 very good. You can visit our Instagram at the gentleman podcast. The dot means a lot. You can visit our website at thegentlemanpodcast.com. Or if you want, you can reach out by email at hosts with an S, HOSTS, at thegentlemanpodcast.com. Thank you so much for listening, and especially to this 2-part special episode of Dune, Part 1 and Part 2. We will be bringing you, I am sure, Part 3 in a number of years when it comes out. Thank you all for listening, and
Peace out,
cheers,
everyone.
gentlemen.